custard with peach ice cream on it and chocolate sauce.
Oh, my God. You're gonna make me sick.
You want the pie warmed up?
Why? So the ice cream can melt all over the dish? Oh, thanks.
Oh, you're real tough. Oh, you're real tough. I'll tell you about tough, man. You know, when I was about your age, right? I'm in the gang on the south side of the Falcons,
Hey,
right?
what are you telling me for? I look like Phil Donahue?
Michael Keaton plays a superstar athlete who befriends a wiseacre kid in Touch and Go. It's a romantic comedy that was filmed almost 2 years ago. Why has it remained on the shelf so long? And should it remain there? I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. In that scene from Touch and Go, we saw one of the two key relationships in the movie between Michael Keaton as a professional hockey player and a little kid named Louis, who is part of a gang that tries to mug him outside the hockey stadium earlier that night. Keaton chases the little kid and catches him and is going to turn him over to the cops, but the kid talks fast and talks his way out of it, and that's the point at which this hard-shelled, cynical professional athlete gets hooked not only on the kid, but also on his mother. Here's the scene where the mother tries to apologize for her son's behavior, and this is a woman who keeps talking no matter what.
Look, listen. Regardless of how it looks, Dries is a good kid.
I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's a great kid.
I know. Mugging is not like a great recommendation, but...
Hey, ladies, look. I'm sure the little tyke has a bright future ahead of himself. Probably open up a little auto parts shop. You know what I'm saying? But I'm under a little pressure here right now.
I understand. I understand, but I want you to understand also that we are good people, honest people, and I always pay my own way and Luis's way, okay? And I just don't like to feel obligated.
Okay, excuse me. See, I'm constitutionally unable to relieve myself in front of a woman, all right?
Oh.
So, if you give me just a little time alone, we'll go grab a burger and we'll call it even.
Now, ordinarily, when you see a woman follow a man into the men's room, you think, well, this is really, they're reaching a little bit hard for the laugh here, but oddly enough, she carries it off with her whole personality, which is she's very single-minded. That's Maria Conchita Alonso playing the mother. You might remember her as the department store clerk in Moscow on the Hudson. Real good again this time. She's warm and funny in this movie, and so is Michael Keaton. I don't think he's ever been better. And the performance by the little kid, A.J. Naidu, is amazing. He doesn't strike a single false note in Touch and Go, and it's basically the story of the three-way relationship between these people, a love story that has something to say about life in the big city and also about the way the most unexpected people sometimes turn out to have the most in common. Now, this movie has had a rough time from the studio, TriStar, which doesn't seem to have much confidence in it, has been releasing it haphazardly around the country without much of a campaign. I guess they don't know what they have on their hands. I think they have a wonderful movie and a real sleeper.
Yeah, I mean, when this picture is being hidden from big cities, you think that it must be a turkey, and it's just not. I think the performances are very fine. I'm not as enthusiastic as you because I think it sort of tails off at the end in a little bit of predictability. Will they all get together? And I think we know which way the story is going. But as you take the performances down the line, I have to agree with you. Michael Keaton is more than just a cut-up. He plays the character quite real. A successful athlete who realizes that where is he going to be when the career ends. That's the argument she uses on him, and it's thoughtful, it's provocative. We read about it before in the newspapers. We haven't seen it played out in the movies quite so well.
You put your finger on the thing that is wrong with the movie, and that is they introduce a bad guy, and then the end of the movie, once again, is one of these 15-minute formulas where the good guy and the bad guy have a chase and a violent confrontation.
That's the problem with
Every time I see that in an ambitious movie like this, I know the screenwriter copped out. Apart from that, though, the basic movie is real good.
Okay. Our next film is Night Mother, a successful play on Broadway about suicide, but it's a stagey, much too clever, not the least bit credible melodrama when it is now on film. The actresses appear to be reciting clever lines, painful lines, and that's a shame because the actresses are Anne Bancroft and Sissy Spacek, who both have done much better work before, many times before. Sissy Spacek plays the suicidal one, Bancroft her mother. The whole story takes place in the mother's house, and one of the gimmicks is a slow awakening by Anne Bancroft to the fact that Sissy Spacek, her daughter, is truly, methodically preparing to kill herself on this very day.
You never should have moved back in here with me. If you'd have kept your little house or found another place when Cecil left you, you'd have made some new friends at least. Had a life to lead, had your own things around you. Give Ricky a place to come see you.
I'm tired, I'm hurt, I'm sad, I feel used.
Tired of what? at all.
Once Bancroft understands that Sissy Spacek is serious about killing herself, which is about a half an hour after we understand it, Bancroft becomes hysterical.
Well, nobody's going to be a bit surprised, sweetheart. This is just like you. Do it the hard way. That's my girl, all right.
Now, look, no one wants to see someone as sweet as Sissy Spacek commit suicide, and so a little bit of our heart naturally goes out to her during this picture. But it's just a little bit, because neither of these characters seems lifelike. Contrary to the song from MASH, suicide is not painless. It's messy. And for all of the shouting that Anne Bancroft does in Night Mother and the shouting that Spacek does back, this story is not messy or painful enough. The script is simply too clever for its own good. It's a serious subject treated glibly.
And I'll tell you another thing. I thought the director was too clever for his own good. I mean, whenever they open up a stage play, they want to give the actors lots of business to do. But Sissy Spacek in this movie, she sets the clock. She looks in the drawer. She folds all of her clothes. She goes into the kitchen. She goes into the bedroom, goes into the bathroom, the living room. She does the dishes.
Right.
She looks in the closets. This is Death Comes to the Galloping Gourmet.
Right.
I thought it would have been a more daring choice if they had filmed it, for example, like My Dinner with Andre, where two people in a very limited space simply talk to each other instead of all of this distracting business, which seemed totally contrived.
And the reason why it's contrived is a mistake on the part of the director, because we all know if we're going to see Night Mother, everyone's going to know what it's about.
Right.
They're going to know it's about someone committing suicide. Whether she does or not, they're not going to know. So all of this preparation, and it's preparation that fools Bancroft, and the fact that Bancroft doesn't catch on, is playing with us. We feel, come on, speed this movie up, let's get into the meat.
The people in the movie are not at least as smart as the people in the audience. The people in the audience are eventually going to start thinking about something else. In the next segment, we review Blue Velvet, a thriller about the shocking things that go on underneath the surface in a small American town.
She wore blue velvet.
Our next movie is named Blue Velvet, and already this movie has caused a firestorm around the country, with some advanced reviews calling it a masterpiece and others calling it sick and depraved, and still others calling it a sick, depraved masterpiece. The movie takes place in a small town where a young couple stumbles over a mystery that begins with the discovery of a severed human ear and leads them to suspect that the ear might belong to the missing husband of a local nightclub singer. Here's the scene where the young couple, Kyle MacLachlan and Laura Dern, make a plan to spy on the older woman.
There are opportunities in life for gaining knowledge and experience. Sometimes it's necessary to take a risk. And I got to thinking, I'll bet someone could learn a lot by getting into that woman's apartment. You know, sneak in, hide, and observe.
Sneak into her apartment?
Yeah.
Are you crazy? Jeffrey, she's possibly involved in murder.
In the movie's most shocking scene, the nightclub singer, played by Isabella Rossellini, discovers MacLachlan hiding in her apartment.
Who sent you here?
Nobody.
I've seen you before.
I sprayed your apartment. I took your key. I didn't mean to do anything except see you.
What did you see tonight? Tell me.
I saw you come in. I saw you talk on the phone.
And then?
We got undressed.
Do you sneak in girls' apartment to see them get undressed?
No, never before this.
Get undressed.
Well, that's a shocking development. Later, MacLachlan befriends her after he finds out Rossellini's husband and son have been kidnapped by a perverted drug addict who has made her his slave.
Who is this?
A friend. He's from the neighborhood. We were just talking.
Oh. You're from the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Your neighbor. Well, what's your name, neighbor?
Jeffrey.
He's a good kid, Frank.
Hey, you want to go for a ride?
No, thanks.
No, thanks. What does that mean?
I don't want to go.
Go where?
For a ride.
A ride. Hell, that's a good idea. Okay, let's go. Let's go. Get your robe.
That's Dennis Hopper as the bad guy there. Blue Velvet is a movie that really challenges you to think about your reactions to it. And my reaction is, I think this movie is cruelly unfair to its actors. It was directed by David Lynch, the same man who made Eraserhead and Dune. And he's a talented director. You can see that here in scenes that have a lot of power. But he asked Isabella Rossellini in this movie to to be undressed and humiliated on the screen, as few actresses ever have been, certainly in non-porno roles. And then he tries to take the edge off her shocking scenes by turning the whole thing into some kind of a joke. Well, either this material is funny, in which case you don't take advantage of your stars, or it isn't funny, in which case it shouldn't have so much campy and adolescent dialogue along with the really powerful sexual scenes. Sure, the movie's well made, but the more I thought about it, the less I liked it.
Well, I liked it, and I thought about it a lot, and I think you may be on the wrong tack in trying to feel sorry for Isabella Rossellini, because after all, she consented to do what she did on the screen, number one. Number two, I'm sure she's walking around wherever she lives, New York City or whatever, and survived the whole experience, just like Janet Leigh survived the shower scene in Psycho. So I don't think that that's pertinent. I think what's exciting about the film, and it is challenging, is it starts out with flowers and sunlight, and it's a happy little town, and then we dig deeper and we find out it's a nasty town, or at least a couple of people are nasty. And I sat there, and this did for me, and I use the Psycho example again, this did for me what Psycho did as a lot younger, which is eyes open and, oh my God, we're really getting in over our heads. And that's an experience which is challenging, shocking, but mesmerizing, and I like the picture.
Well, first of all, I don't think I'm on the wrong tack with Isabella Rossellini. In the first place, the movie was shot in 2 halves, so she had no idea, making her part of the movie, that all of the stuff outdoors and in the daylight was going to be smarmy and campy and funny with all kinds of in-jokes. And secondly, it seems to me that we can't divorce our reactions. It's not how Isabella Rossellini reacts to the fact that she's standing there nude and humiliated on the lawn of the police captain's house with lots of people watching. It's how I react. And that's painful to me, to see a woman treated like that, and I want to know that if I'm feeling that pain, it's for a reason that the movie has other than simply to cause pain to her.
Well, I think that the reason is that the film is a thriller and a shocker. I mean, there are people that get hurt badly in real life, and I think that this is a legitimate one. This is not a simple mad slasher movie.
Then why is it a comedy?
Because he wants to set you up. He's a director, and he wants to play you like all the directors, the great directors want to do. He wants to play you like a piano, which is have you smile and then swing you right into some depression.
Yeah, well, the next time that somebody
wants
to play me like a piano, he'd better get some music that's worth listening to.
I think this is a good song.
Coming up next, a child is born in the Amazon to a woman who can turn herself into a dolphin. I bet you haven't heard that story before.
He's the one.
Is Where the River Runs Black, an adventure story set in the Amazon featuring that old reliable storyline of good natives being exploited by evil so-called educated society members. The only wrinkle in this picture is that the main native character, a young boy, has some very special parents according to local legend. Charles Durning explains.
The Indians tell of a legend of a boy who lives at the place where the water turns black. They say he is the son of a priest and a beautiful woman who changes into a dolphin.
Eventually, Charles Durning hooks up with the boy who is brought into so-called civilization. Durning and the boy's father were friends.
I knew your father well. He was good, kind, a gentle man, with a sharp mind like yours.
Is her dad?
Yes.
Who killed her?
He disappeared.
Someone killed him, probably.
Is that how your mother died? Someone killed her?
A man.
Do you know who?
No, but whoever it was, he deserves to die.
That scene wasn't too exciting, and there are a lot like that when the boy comes to civilization. Now, of course, he does get revenge. The boy does seek out his mother's murderer, and what we end up with, despite the beautiful settings in the picture, is just another chase film with some truly silly scenes, including an attack of bottlenose dolphins. This film could have been called Flipper Runs Wild. I assume what the filmmakers wanted to do was make a picture with a respect for nature on the order of the black stallion. I would have liked to have seen that. And indeed, those nature shots that we saw in the beginning of that first clip are beautiful. But instead, what they've made, I think, is a routine, highly implausible action picture that, frankly, turned into a bore.
Well, I'm not going to say this is a great picture, but I do give it thumbs up, and I think you're taking a real cheap shot to call it Flipper Runs Wild. I
just
thought
in that one scene.
No, the scenes with the dolphins were terrific. They were well photographed, they were exciting, they were beautiful. The whole movie
The dolphins are prettier than the people.
Well, that's not true either, but the whole movie absorbs the voodoo of these rainforest locations in Brazil, and it creates a fantasy. I think to some degree, Gene, you've got to go with this. It's a story of a boy whose parents, one is a dolphin, one is a is a human being, and this...
I don't have to go with
You're
that.
laughing at it because it's easy to laugh at. Either you can take it for what it's intended to be, or the whole thing is ridiculous.
Well, I think the whole thing is more ridiculous because, I mean, The Black Stallion isn't the most plausible story, but I went with that.
Yeah.
Aguirre, The Wrath of God, takes us into the jungle. It's one of your favorite films. This isn't anywhere in the ballpark of those films, and I think you know it.
Well, I think we can both agree this is not one of the greatest films of all time,
Okay.
but it's an ambitious, dreamy, pretty, exciting movie.
Only of those words that I would agree with is pretty. I think it is deeply flawed. The story is silly, and it's a chase picture. And Francois Truffaut did the whole thing about a boy being civilized and with a wild child much better than this film. I named three that are better than that.
Let's make a list of the 10 greatest films of all time. We can agree it's not as good as any of them.
That's good, and I'll do that during the commercial. Coming up next, our new weekly segment featuring movies on video cassette.
Holmes is going to solve the crime. Holmes is going to solve a crime.
Sometimes a movie will come along that's got some really great stuff in it, but maybe the whole movie doesn't quite work or people aren't interested in the subject, and so the good stuff gets lost in the shuffle. Salvador was a movie like that with a great performance by James Woods as a spaced-out, burnt-out journalist wandering around South America pretending to be a foreign correspondent. The movie's out on video this week, and here's a scene with Woods and John Savage, who plays a combat photographer.
You know what made photographers like Robert Capa great, rich? They weren't after the money. They captured the nobility of human suffering.
It was a great shot in Spain. One flying through the air.
Yeah, but it was more than the bodies, Rich. He got why they died.
Salvador is an angry film which suggests that while everyone solemnly debates Latin American politics, people are being shot and killed for reasons that have less to do with ideals than with craziness and greed. We did a program not long ago naming James Woods as one of the best and most underrated American actors, and this movie really shows why.
I think he's very good in the film. The rest of the story didn't hold my attention. I thought it was a little bit overwrought. Jim Belushi, I thought, went over the top, and John Savage, too, and I can't recommend the film. Also being released this week is Young Sherlock Holmes. Now, this is a wonderful idea for the film. I like the idea of kids playing Sherlock Holmes. Unfortunately, though, as much as I enjoyed the idea of this picture and some of the performances of the young Watson and the young Holmes in this picture, Young Sherlock Holmes, I didn't care for the adventure that they were given, which seemed to me to be a ripoff of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Here the boys pursue their mystery in a tavern.
What can I get for you boys? Drink, food, women?
Do you have any soup?
Please. Are you the owner of this establishment? Have you ever seen this before?
Rummy tip! Rummy tip! Rummy tip! Rummy tip! Rummy tip!
Is that the end of the song?
To repeat, the casting is fine, but their quest was overwrought, too large and special effects filled for my taste, almost approaching Ghostbusters levels. It's a close call for me, but thumbs down.
Now, that's funny because I like that one. I thought that the special effects made the story and that the energy and comedy were terrific. I enjoyed it.
I would have kept it down a little bit and keep it England as opposed to special effects.
I tell you, I recommend both of these films, and you don't recommend either one. That's terrific. Let's now look at take another look at the movies we reviewed early in the program. In Touch and Go, Michael Keaton gets mugged by a kid and falls in love with his mother. The movie's a funny, warm-hearted sleeper, 2 thumbs up. Night Mother stars Sissy Spacek and Anne Bancroft in a long prelude to suicide that is too long, if you ask me. Gene agrees, 2 thumbs down. We disagreed on Blue Velvet. Gene likes its style and cleverness, but I thought it didn't have much feeling for the deep human emotions that it toys with. And a split decision on Where the River Runs Black. I like the fable of a dolphin that turns into a beautiful woman. Why not? And her son, who's half human. Gene thought it was boring and implausible. 1 thumb up, and your thumb down.
So the one we both like is the one that's having a tough time getting released, Touch and Go. That's it for this week. Next week, we'll review Sean Connery in a 14th century mystery called The Name of the Rose. And Jack Lemmon and Julie Andrews play husband and wife facing life-threatening crises in the offbeat comedy, That's Life. Until then, the balcony is closed.